may I start with you, Mr. Almurzakov? What do you make of the Chinese Premier's visit? It seems that during the 4 visits to the countries along the Silk Road, he's having a very comprehensive schedule to reach agreements with the 4 countries.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. Now we are preparing the summit of SCO, of head of governments. So it is a traditional summit to finalize the results of the development of SCO countries. Now it is a very good period for strategic development of SCO. So Kyrgyzstan supports all initiatives in SCO. So we maintain the extension of the organization, and I think the schedule of Mr. Li Keqiang will be very active, who initiate a lot of new ideas, and I think we will support all ideas in the area of cooperation, exceptionally in economic cooperation in different areas, also in energy and transport and others.
Well, it seems very comprehensive, Professor Wang from Beijing. China, of course, has this Belt and Road Initiative to begin with. However, it takes a lot of cash, a lot of joint efforts from all sides in order to make it happen. So with such a comprehensive list of agreements to be signed between the Chinese Premier and his counterparts in the 4 countries, how likely will these initiatives eventually be implemented?
Well, after 3 years of promotion, I think we reached so many consensus. At least 100 countries, international organizations, including United Nations, agree to participate or show the positive gesture to Belt and Road Initiative. So far, China signed with more than 36 countries to jointly build the Belt and Road Initiative, and more than 26 countries signed the International Capacity Cooperation deal with China.
And of course, Kyrgyzstan is a very special country. It was there that the Chinese President Xi Jinping announced the specific ideas about the Belt and Road Initiative.
Yeah, because Kazakhstan is the largest landlocked country in the world.
That's right. And to you, Dr. Davis, while you are observing the issues from afar, what do you make of the speed of this Belt and Road Initiative and also the implementation process?
Yes, as for the speed, I'd make 2 points here. First, there are certainly some concrete achievements already. I draw attention in particular to the dry port at Khorgos on the border between China and Kazakhstan, and there are ambitious plans to develop that into a larger logistics center. There are also rail lines going ahead. But secondly, and probably more important, I think that if we're concerning the question of speed, there's an English expression that you make haste slowly. Now, what China is doing is something that it's never done on this scale before. It's reaching out really across the continent, developing a concept of economic diplomacy that many welcome, but China is aware also that there are some local concerns among some parts of some of the population's questions about what this means. So I think it's right to develop a cautious strategic approach rather than rushing into things, to prepare the ground carefully for what will be part of China's larger historic long-term reaching out across the entire continent. So, as I say, make haste, but make it slowly.
Professor Wang, do you agree?
Well, of course, it's a huge project, it's a long-term, but it's not just China's project. It's it's a mutual connectivity, basically in the Eurasian continent, but also extend to Africa and other countries. It's inclusive, it's open, it's not just a strategy of China.
For you, Professor, Mr. Almurzakov, in Kyrgyzstan, what does this Belt and Road Initiative really mean for countries like yours? How much do you think your future potential of blueprint for your country's economy is linked to China's grand plan And how much role does your country, Kyrgyzstan, would like to play and can play in terms of implementing this grand plan?
Yeah, Kyrgyzstan, as other Central Asian countries, plays a strategic role in the extension of the Chinese strategy, One Belt, One Road. So I think the future constructed roads constructed by Chinese companies and railway, and also the pipelines constructed across Kyrgyz territory will play a big role in the implementation of the Chinese strategy.
But on the other hand, Kyrgyz, what role can you play? I mean, there's issues of personnel, there's issue of capital, there's issue of how to make sure once the constructions are being completed, various subjects, it will be implemented and will be smoothly in operation. So how are the roles being divided? Kyrgyz, what role can you play?
Last year, our presidents signed the program of cooperation between two countries, 2015 and 2025. So now the head of governments will discuss the practical realization of the program, and I think in order to implement the Chinese strategy, One Belt, One Road, all countries play a big role, but exceptionally Kyrgyzstan, which had the borders with China, will play the role to get the access to, for example, to Tajikistan and Afghanistan, in order to extend these ways. And I think the Kyrgyzstan could play as a transit point from China. I think also Kyrgyzstan is an important point in order to have an access to Uzbekistan. As you know, we were discussing now the project of railway from China across Kyrgyzstan to Uzbekistan. I think here Kyrgyzstan plays a big role.
I see. Professor Wang, you know, it is very rare that we have guests on any international network coming from Kyrgyzstan or Kazakhstan, but with the Belt and Road Initiative, we could hear voices from some of these Central Asian countries, even though we still have some delay in the quality of the voices, and yet we could hear their voices, and also it's about connectivity. But Professor Wang, let me go to an even more important question about not just the Belt and Road Initiative, but also the other part of the itinerary for Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, that is SCO. SCO's 15-year anniversary this year, and started with an initiative against terrorism and military cooperation. But now it's about energy, it's about economy, it's about many other initiatives. Many wonder, Professor Wang, has this SCO expanded too fast, too widely in this agenda? Meanwhile, what exactly is it going to play its role in the region?
Well, I don't think so. The SCO can play a more important role besides security cooperations among Central Asian countries with Russia and China. But now we invite more participants from India, Pakistan, because I think the mutual connectivities, facilities, trade, and finance, this cooperation can help to contribute to regional stability and world peace. So development security is highly linking. So anti-three evils, we should also pay high attention for poverty lifting and also mutual connectivity and people-to-people bond. I think this is contribute to the same goal.
Dr. Davis, your observation?
Yes, no, I agree with that. I think that we are seeing a shift in the center of gravity of the SCO from its original security mandate towards a much more economic agenda. And I think that makes sense against the background of the larger move towards greater connectivity across the region. There's the additional point that expansion and the bringing in of new members also brings with it new challenges, particularly if those members themselves have complex security relationships with one another. So India and Pakistan, of course, are not always at peace with one another. It therefore makes sense to shift ground onto areas where a consensus is more likely rather than less likely to be achieved.
But what about the role of SCO for the region? We've seen different kinds of regional mechanism platforms being established over the past few years. Dr. Davis, what do you make of the existence of so many different platforms? And is SCO eventually going to stand out among them? For what?
Achievements of the SCO so far in the security sphere have disappointed some. In practice, it's been very difficult to establish effective, practical cooperation, even on the anti-terrorism, on which there is a consensus among members, and on which one would want to see, particularly in Central Asia, with rising concerns about terrorist activity, one want to see progress. There's been relatively little joint work, for example, with respect to the growing concerns about the leaking of terrorism from Afghanistan, with planned troop withdrawals there from the West. And so I think the track record is one that's been perhaps less than some of its parts.
Mr. Omuzakov, would you like to respond to what Dr. Davis just said? Whether SCO has really fulfilled their role, for example, even about the basic issue fighting against terrorism and about countries' cooperation?
Yes, I think SCO also plays a big role in order to ensure the security in the Central Asia. As you know, there was a terroristic attack on the eve of our Independence Day, 30th August, in the Chinese embassy. And this terroristic attack shows that Central Asian countries are still vulnerable for terrorism. And after that, in September, during September, we had military trainings of SCO forces against terroristic scenarios as in Syria. And we thought that it was very good answer for terrorism. There was trainings in Bishkek against some scenarios, but we can say that terrorism is still a big threat in Central Asia. I think maybe SCO will cooperate with other security organizations as CSTO with Russia ahead, leading by Russia.
Professor Wang.
Definitely. Terrorist is a transborder. If you just focus on Central Asia, maybe you can still have some difficulties because many terrorists from Syria, even from South Asia. So need more cooperations and training of the anti-terrorist forces.
There is another part of Chinese Premier Li's trip that is going to Russia and to have this regular Prime Minister's meeting with the Russian Prime Minister, his counterpart, with very strong presidential leadership, shall we say, in both countries, both China and also Russia. What do you make of the significance of this working meeting between the two prime ministers, Mr. Professor Wang?
Well, China-Russian relations is, I think, it's a model for great power relations. It's a non-alliance. It's no target any other single country, and mutual trust, win-win cooperations. I think SCO is one of the achievements, and at the same time now with the Belt and Road Initiative, the mutual connectivities among the Central Asia continent also need China and Russia cooperate.
However, Professor Wang, we see China and Russia propose different possibilities and platforms. Belt and Road Initiative proposed by China, and also the Eurasian community coming from Russia. They do have some overlapping areas, for example, Central Asia and also Central European countries. So is there going to be a competition, or this is more like a cooperative relationship regarding the future platform?
Well, I don't think it's a confrontation or conflict. You know, Belt and Road Initiative highlights the principles, so-called the synergies of strategies that Eurasian Economic Union and with Belt and Road, they signed actually jointly to cooperations. So it's not a zero-sum game. At the same time, we respect that Russia's influence in Central Asia, even in other places. They speak Russians, they have the traditional linkages, the energy and facilities. So I think Chinese wisdom is not to do manners, it's to, I think, to the work of the 1+1, and then to reach the even more than 3 effects. That kind of wisdom, I think, still works.
Okay, and Dr. Davis, before we go, final question briefly for you. You see this Chinese premier making its 8-day trip to Central and the Eastern European countries. Many believe it's a reflection of how much emphasis China is putting on this part of the world. You're coming from the UK yourself with the Chatham House. You know how much most of the European continent, particularly South and also Western Europe, is now being dragged down by the migrant crisis. What do you make of the potential of this area, I mean Eastern and Central European regions? And what would that mean, the China's cooperation closely with this region for the other parts of Europe? Dr. Davis.
Yes. No, I think symbolically the scope of Premier Li's visit is very interesting and significant. Recall that in recent months in the West there is talk of a growing crisis of globalization. We've had Brexit, of course. We've had the uncertainties that the Trans-Pacific Partnership has run into, particularly in the context of the American presidential campaign, and other concerns as well. The EU-Canada Trade Investment Treaty, which barely squeaked through. So against that background, it is interesting that the aspiration to develop a greater Eurasian economic area is being led really, I think at this point, by China, which is increasingly becoming, it seems to me, a producer, not just a consumer, of initiatives and institutions. And recall, too, that the scope of this trip is not something that, say, the Russians would be able to do. The 16+1 CEE meeting in Latvia really could not happen with a Russian interlocutor, given the sanctions regime between the EU and Russia at the moment. So I think symbolically we should pay attention to the length and significance of this visit. And as we know, more and more European countries, and not only those in Central and Eastern Europe, are looking to China as an investment partner. Final point on the Russian-Chinese end part of this visit. I think the most significant point here is the date. It will take place, it will finish on the 9th of November. That's one day after the presidential election in the United States. So I suspect that outcome, if it's clear, will be an important talking point for the two leaders.